Three brothers stand at Gate 27, Terminal B. David adjusts his navy blazer for the third time in 5 minutes. His fingers drum against his carry-on handle, not from nerves about the speech he's about to give, but from pure excitement. Beside him, Malik stretches his long legs, his athletic frame barely contained in his tailored suit. The youngest, Jordan, checks his phone one last time, reviewing the notes for their presentation at the National Youth Empowerment Summit in Atlanta. They're not just any brothers. They're the Cole brothers, though you wouldn't know it from looking at them. No designer labels screaming for attention. No entourage. Just three young black men dressed professionally, carrying themselves with quiet confidence. David, 22, graduated MIT at 19 and now runs a tech startup that's already valued at 8 figures. Malik, 20, turned down multiple Division I basketball scholarships to focus on his sports psychology degree while mentoring inner-city kids. Jordan, just 18, built a social enterprise that's provided clean water to 12 villages in Ghana, all before his high school graduation. Their boarding passes are tucked neatly in David's folder. First class. Seats 2A, 2B, and 2C on Skyline Airlines Flight 447. The same airline their mother has run for the past 5 years, though they'd never tell you that. Mrs. Adanna Cole raised them to earn their own achievements, to never trade on her name. So here they stand, just three brothers among hundreds of travelers, waiting for their boarding group to be called. The gate agent's voice crackles over the intercom. We'll now begin boarding Flight 447 with service to Atlanta. First-class passengers, please approach the gate. David leads the way, that familiar flutter of pre-flight anticipation in his chest. Malik follows, already mentally rehearsing his portion of their presentation about overcoming adversity. Jordan brings up the rear, shoulders back, head high, exactly how their mother taught them to walk through the world. They reach the gate agent, a woman in her 40s with perfectly styled blonde hair and a name tag reading Karen Mitchell. She takes David's boarding pass, scans it, and suddenly her expression changes. Her eyes narrow. She scans it again. Then a third time. Is there a problem? David asks politely. Karen Mitchell looks up at him, then at his brothers, her gaze lingering a beat too long. These tickets. She starts, her voice carrying that particular tone, the one every black person recognizes instantly. They seem suspicious. The word hangs in the air like smoke from a fire that's about to spread. Malik steps forward, his athlete's instincts detecting trouble. Suspicious how? We purchased them directly from the airline website 2 weeks ago. Karen's fingers fly across her keyboard, her frown deepening with each keystroke. First-class tickets. 3 of them. Purchased on the same card. She says it like she's uncovered evidence of a crime. I'm going to need to see some additional identification. David reaches for his wallet without complaint. They've been taught to choose their battles. He produces his driver's license, his MIT alumni card, even his global entry card. Malik and Jordan follow suit. Karen examines each piece of identification like a forensic investigator, holding them up to the light, running her finger across the raised lettering. Behind them, the line grows. Other first-class passengers, a white businessman in rumpled khakis, a young white couple with matching Louis Vuitton luggage, step around the brothers and approach the gate. Karen waves them through without so much as a glance at their boarding passes. Excuse me, Jordan says, his young voice steady despite the heat rising in his chest. You're letting them board without any additional verification. Karen's jaw tightens. I'm not done with your verification yet. The businessman pauses, looking back. He's noticed what's happening. So has the couple. A few passengers pull out their phones, not obviously, but that subtle angle that means they are recording. David takes a breath, channeling the same composure he uses in boardrooms full of investors twice his age. Our flight boards in 15 minutes. We have a speaking engagement in Atlanta. Is there a specific issue with our tickets that you can identify? The issue, Karen says, her voice rising enough for others to hear, is that I have the right to verify any tickets that appear suspicious. And frankly, 3 young men with first-class tickets to Atlanta raises some flags. She doesn't say black men, but she might as well have spray-painted it across the terminal wall. Malik's hands clench at his sides. All those hours his mother spent teaching them to navigate these moments, to stay calm, to document everything, to never give them an excuse, flood back. What flags exactly? He asks, pulling out his phone to record. Karen's eyes flash to the phone. Sir, you need to put that away. It's not against airline policy to record in the terminal, Jordan says quietly. He would know, he's memorized most of the passenger rights documents from every major airline, a habit he picked up from his mother without her ever asking him to. More phones come out now. The crowd behind them has grown from annoyed to attentive. Someone whispers, "This is messed up." Another passenger, an older black woman, shakes her head knowingly, she's seen this movie before. Karen reaches for her radio. "I need security at gate 27. We have a situation." A situation? David's composure finally cracks, just slightly. "We're trying to board a flight with valid tickets. You've created the situation." A young Latina woman in line speaks up. "They're right. You're racially profiling them. We all see it." Karen spins toward the woman. Please mind your own business or I'll have to document you as a disruptive passenger." The tension ratchets up another notch. The terminal, usually filled with the white noise of travel, seems to quiet around them. Even the departure announcements seem to pause, as if the airport itself is holding its breath. David tries once more, his voice remarkably steady. "Can we speak to a supervisor, please?" Karen smiles, the kind of smile that doesn't reach her eyes. "I am the gate supervisor for this flight. And until I'm satisfied that these tickets are legitimate, you're not boarding this plane." She turns back to her computer, typing furiously. The brothers can see their information on her screen, their seats clearly marked as purchased and paid for, their names matching their IDs perfectly. There's nothing suspicious except the narrative Karen has constructed in her head. Malik pulls out his phone to call their mother, but it goes straight to voicemail. Of course, she's in the quarterly board meeting. The one she's been preparing for all month. The one where she's announcing the airline's new diversity initiatives. The irony isn't lost on him. 2 airport security officers round the corner, one older white man with a graying mustache, one younger black officer who immediately takes in the scene with knowing eyes. The older officer approaches Karen first. "What seems to be the problem here?" Karen's entire demeanor shifts. Suddenly she's the victim. These 3 men are refusing to comply with standard verification procedures. They're becoming aggressive. Aggressive! Jordan can't help but laugh, though there's no humor in it. "We've been standing here calmly for 10 minutes while you let everyone else board." The older officer turns to the brothers. "I'm going to need you 3 to step aside." "Officer," David says, fighting to keep his voice level, "we have done absolutely nothing wrong. Our tickets are valid. Our IDs are valid. We're being discriminated against." The younger officer shifts uncomfortably. He sees it, of course he sees it. But his partner has seniority, and the gate agent has already set the narrative. "Step aside," the older officer repeats, his hand moving to rest on his belt, not on his weapon, but the implication is clear. "Now!" The crowd reacts. Someone shouts, "This is wrong." Another passenger, a white man in a business suit, steps forward. "Officer, I've been watching this entire situation. These young men have been nothing but respectful. The gate agent is profiling them." Karen's face reddens. "Sir, if you interfere, you'll be removed from this flight as well." The businessman pulls out his phone and starts live streaming. "My name is Tom Richardson. I'm streaming this live. 3 young black men are being denied boarding on Skyline Airlines Flight 447 for no reason other than their race." Within seconds, his stream has dozens of viewers. Then hundreds. The digital age moves at the speed of outrage, and this outrage is justified. Jordan tries texting their mother's assistant, Pamela. The response comes quickly, "She's in the board meeting." "Is it urgent?" He types back, "We're being denied boarding. Security involved. Going viral." 3 dots appear, then disappear. Then appear again. Meanwhile, the older security officer has positioned himself between the brothers and the gate. "Gentlemen, I'm going to ask you one more time. Step aside so we can sort this out. Sort what out? Malik asks. What exactly are we accused of? Having valid tickets while black. The younger officer winces. He knows how this looks. He knows how this ends if it continues to escalate. Maybe we can just verify the tickets quickly, Anne. I've already determined they need additional screening, Karen interrupts. That's my call to make. David's phone buzzes. It's Pamela, showing her now. She's coming. But Karen doesn't know what's coming. She stands there, arms crossed, a satisfied expression on her face as she watches the brothers be corralled away from the gate. Other passengers are boarding now, walking past the scene with a mixture of sympathy and relief that it's not them. This is going on Twitter, someone says. Already on TikTok, another adds. It's at 10,000 views. Worldstar's gonna have a field day with this. The older officer is getting nervous now. He can feel the phones on him, the weight of public scrutiny. Look, maybe we can resolve this quickly. Can you just show me your tickets and IDs? David hands them over, his hands steady despite the fury building inside him. The officer examines them, finds nothing wrong, because there is nothing wrong, and turns to Karen. These look fine to me. Karen's smile tightens. I have concerns about how they were purchased. The fraud detection system. You didn't run any fraud detection, Jordan interrupts. You took one look at us and decided we didn't belong in first class. The crowd murmurs agreement. More phones are out now. Someone starts an Instagram live. The hashtag #FlyingWhileBlack starts trending before the brothers even know it exists. The younger security officer steps closer to his partner. Maybe we should just let them board. There's clearly no issue here. But Karen has dug in now. Pride and prejudice make a dangerous cocktail. I have the authority to deny boarding to any passenger I deem suspicious. That's airline policy. Your policy is racism, the older black woman from the line says loudly. I've been flying for 40 years, and I've seen this exact scene play out too many times. Tom Richardson, still streaming, approaches the security officers. Officers, I'm a witness to this entire event. These young men have been nothing but cooperative. I'm willing to provide a statement. The older officer is sweating now. This is spiraling beyond a simple gate dispute. Everyone just calm down. That's when the energy in the terminal shifts. It's subtle at first, a few people looking past the commotion toward the main corridor. Then more heads turn. The crowd parts like the Red Sea, and through it walks a woman whose presence commands attention without demanding it. Mrs. Adanna Cole doesn't stride, she glides. Her navy suit is impeccable but understated. Her natural hair is pulled back in an elegant bun. She wears no visible jewelry except for small pearl earrings and a simple wedding band. But everyone knows power when they see it. She's flanked by two members of airport management who struggle to keep up with her pace from the boardroom. Pamela trails behind with her tablet, already pulling up files. Mrs. Cole's eyes take in the entire scene in a single sweep. Her sons, standing to the side like suspects. The security officers, hands on their belts. The gate agent, still clutching her authority like a life preserver. The crowd of passengers, phones raised, documenting injustice in real time. She doesn't rush to her sons. That would be emotion. This requires something more. She approaches Karen Mitchell first, reading her name tag with deliberate slowness. Ms. Mitchell. I understand there's an issue with 3 passengers boarding this flight. Karen, not recognizing her CEO, puffs up with self-importance. Yes, these 3 men have suspicious tickets. I'm following protocol. What protocol exactly? Mrs. Cole's voice is silk wrapped around steel. The protocol that allows me to verify any suspicious activity. 3 young men, first-class tickets, paying cash. They paid with a credit card, Mrs. Cole corrects. 2 weeks in advance. The card belongs to an A. Cole. Would you like to know what the stands for? Something in her tone makes Karen hesitate. The security officers exchange glances. The crowd has gone completely silent. Those, Mrs. Cole says, her voice now carrying through the entire gate area, are my sons. The color drains from Karen's face so fast it's as if someone pulled a plug. Her mouth opens, closes, opens again. No sound comes out. The older security officer takes a step back. The younger one closes his eyes briefly. He knew something like this was coming. Your sons? Karen manages to whisper. David Cole. Malik Cole. Jordan Cole. Mrs. Cole says each name with precision. They purchased their tickets through proper channels. They arrived at the airport 3 hours early. They followed every single protocol. The only thing suspicious here, Ms. Mitchell, is your behavior. The crowd erupts. Someone shouts, "That's the CO." Another person whoops. Tom Richardson's livestream comments are scrolling so fast they are unreadable. Karen tries to salvage the situation. I was just being cautious. Cautious? Mrs. Cole's eyebrow rises a fraction of an inch. Let me review what caution looks like, Ms. Mitchell. Did you run their tickets through the fraud detection system? Well, no, but... Did you ask any other first-class passengers for additional identification? That's not. Did you call security on any other passengers today? Karen's silence is deafening. Mrs. Cole turns to the security officers. Gentlemen, thank you for responding. Your services are no longer needed here. The younger officer nods immediately and starts to leave. The older one hesitates. The gate agent did call us. I'm aware of what she did, Mrs. Cole says. I'm also aware of what she didn't do, which is treat my sons, and by extension any passenger of color, with the dignity and respect they deserve. She turns back to Karen, and now her voice carries the full weight of her authority. Ms. Mitchell, you are relieved of your duties, effective immediately. You can't, Karen starts. I can and I am. Security, please escort Ms. Mitchell to the administrative offices. Human resources will be waiting. The crowd applauds. Someone shouts, about time. Another passenger calls out, thank you. But Mrs. Cole isn't finished. She pulls out her phone and dials. The entire terminal can hear her side of the conversation. Captain Morrison? This is Adanna Cole. I'm grounding Flight 447. Yes, you heard correctly. We have a serious discrimination incident that requires immediate investigation. No, the plane doesn't move until I personally clear it. She ends the call and addresses the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, I sincerely apologize for what you've witnessed today. This is not who Skyline Airlines is, and it's not who we will ever be. Flight 447 will be delayed while we conduct a thorough investigation. Any passenger who wishes to rebook on another flight will be accommodated at no charge. First-class upgrades will be provided to anyone who was inconvenienced by this delay. A murmur of surprise runs through the crowd. That's potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in upgrades. Mrs. Cole continues. Additionally, Skyline Airlines will be implementing mandatory anti-bias training for all gate agents and customer-facing staff starting tomorrow. She finally turns to her sons. For just a moment, the CEO facade cracks, and she's simply a mother looking at her children who've been hurt. But she doesn't hug them. Not here, not now. That would make this about her family instead of about what's right. Gentlemen, she says to David, Malik, and Jordan, I apologize that you experienced this while flying with our airline. This is unacceptable. David steps forward, and his voice carries his mother's same composure. This isn't about us being your sons. This is about every black passenger who's been profiled, questioned, and humiliated while trying to travel. Mrs. Cole nods. You're absolutely right. And that's why this doesn't end here. She turns to Pamela, who's been recording everything on her tablet. I want a full investigation. Every flight Ms. Mitchell has supervised. Every complaint that's been filed. Every passenger who might have experienced something similar but didn't have the platform to speak up. The terminal is still recording. The live streams are still rolling. The world is watching Adanna Cole turn a moment of discrimination into a moment of change. But wait, if you're invested in stories like this that expose real issues and inspire real change, make sure you subscribe to the channel right now. Hit that notification bell because we're going to follow up on this story and many others that need to be told. Now, Back to our story. The investigation that follows is swift and damning. Karen Mitchell, it turns out, has a pattern. 17 complaints in 2 years, all from passengers of color, all buried in bureaucracy. The assistant gate supervisor, the one who should have been monitoring her, also gets suspended pending investigation. The 3 Cole brothers do make their flight to Atlanta, though on a different plane with a different crew. Their mother doesn't fly with them. That would make this about nepotism rather than justice. Instead, she stays behind to personally apologize to every single passenger who was delayed. When the brothers arrive at the National Youth Empowerment Summit, they have a different speech than the one they planned. They talk about what happened at the airport. They show the videos that have now been viewed millions of times. They talk about their mother not as a CEO, but as a black woman who taught them to stand tall even when the world tries to make them feel small. She could have called ahead, David tells the audience of 500 young people. She could have made sure we were treated like VIPs. But that would have protected us while leaving everyone else vulnerable. Malik adds, the real power isn't in shielding yourself from discrimination. It's in using your position to dismantle the systems that allow discrimination to flourish. Jordan, the youngest, brings it home. Every one of you has power. Maybe not CEO power, but power nonetheless. The power to record. The power to speak up. The power to refuse to be silent when you see injustice. The summit erupts in applause. The videos of their speech go even more viral than the airport footage. 3 brothers turned a moment of humiliation into a movement for change. But the real change happens in the weeks that follow. Skyline Airlines doesn't just implement anti-bias training, they revolutionize it. They bring in experts. They create a passenger advocate position specifically to address discrimination complaints. They institute a policy where any employee accused of profiling is immediately reviewed by an independent panel. Other airlines take notice. The phrase, the Cole Protocol, becomes industry standard for how to handle discrimination incidents. Karen Mitchell's name becomes a cautionary tale in customer service training videos across the country. The Cole brothers continue speaking at events, but now they are not just 3 successful young men, they are symbols of what happens when privilege is used for purpose. They start a foundation that provides legal support for travelers who experience discrimination but don't have the platform or resources to fight back. 6 months later, Mrs. Adanna Cole stands before Congress, testifying about discrimination in air travel. She brings data, hard numbers showing that passengers of color are 75% more likely to be subjected to additional screening, 60% more likely to be questioned about their tickets, and 80% more likely to have security called on them for non-violent disputes. My sons were lucky, she tells the congressional committee. They had me. But what about the millions of travelers who don't have a CEO mother? What about the young black professional flying to their first job interview? The immigrant family trying to visit relatives? The student athlete traveling to a championship? Who protects them? The legislation that follows, informally known as the Cole Act, mandates federal oversight of airline discrimination complaints. It establishes steep fines for airlines that show patterns of profiling. It requires transparency in reporting these incidents. But perhaps the most powerful change is the most personal. 3 months after the incident, David, Malik, and Jordan receive a letter. It's handwritten, which is unusual enough in the digital age. The return address shows a name they don't recognize, K. Mitchell. Karen Mitchell's letter is 3 pages long. She doesn't make excuses. She doesn't blame anyone else. She writes about growing up in a small town where she never really knew black people. She writes about fear disguised as caution. She writes about how watching the video of herself, seeing herself through the world's eyes, broke something inside her that needed to be broken. I was the villain in your story, she writes. But more importantly, I was the villain in my own. I'm in therapy now. I'm learning. I'm unpacking decades of bias I didn't even know I was carrying. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it yet. But I wanted you to know that your grace in that moment, the way you stood there with dignity while I tried to strip it from you, changed me. Your mother raised you right. I failed myself and my own children by not being the person they could be proud of. I'm trying to be better. The brothers discuss the letter for hours. Malik wants to throw it away. Jordan thinks they should respond. David suggests something else entirely. They invite Karen Mitchell to their next speaking engagement, not to absolve her, not to make her feel better, but to show that change is possible. She sits in the back row, tears streaming down her face as they tell the story again. When they mention her by name, they don't demonize her. They humanize her, a flawed person whose actions caused harm but who might, just might, be capable of growth. After the speech, she approaches them. The conversation is brief, awkward, heavy with the weight of what happened. But it happens. And somewhere in that uncomfortable space between harm and healing, something shifts. Karen Mitchell goes on to become an unlikely advocate for anti-bias training. She speaks at airlines, corporations, schools, anywhere that will have her. She tells her story of being the gate agent who went viral for all the wrong reasons. She owns her mistake without seeking absolution. She educates without expecting applause. The Cole brothers continue to fly Skyline Airlines. They still don't ask for special treatment. They still arrive early, dress professionally, and carry themselves with dignity. But now, when they hand over their boarding passes, gate agents know their names not because of who their mother is, but because of who they are, 3 young men who turned a moment of injustice into a movement for change. The ripple effects continue. Other industries begin examining their own practices. Hotels look at how they treat guests of color who book luxury suites. Retailers reconsider their policies about following certain customers. Banks review their procedures for verifying large deposits from young black entrepreneurs. Mrs. Adanna Cole never speaks publicly about that day without mentioning the passengers who stood up. Tom Richardson, who live-streamed despite threats to his own ticket. The older black woman who called out what she saw. The young Latina who refused to be silent. The white businessman who offered to be a witness. Change doesn't happen because of one powerful person, she says in a 60 Minutes interview a year later. It happens when everyday people decide that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Those passengers didn't know my sons were my sons. They just knew that what they were witnessing was wrong, and they refused to let it pass unchallenged. The interviewer asks her the question everyone wants to know: did you ever think about calling ahead? Making sure your sons never had to experience something like that? Mrs. Cole's answer becomes one of the most quoted responses of the year. Every black mother thinks about protecting her children from the world's cruelty. But if I had protected my sons that day, Karen Mitchell would still be at that gate. Those 17 complaints would still be buried. The next black family to walk up to that counter would face the same humiliation. Sometimes the greatest privilege is being in a position to expose the problem, not avoid it. Here's a question for you, our viewers. Have you ever witnessed discrimination while traveling? Did you speak up, or did you remain silent? What would you do if you saw something like this happening today? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's keep this conversation going because it's only through dialogue that we create real change. The Cole brothers' story becomes required viewing in business schools, sociology classes, and law enforcement training programs. It's a masterclass in dignity under pressure, in using privilege for purpose, and in the power of collective action. But for David, Malik, and Jordan, it's simpler than that. It's about 3 brothers who stood their ground, a mother who stood with them, and a world that finally stood up to pay attention. Their story reminds us that discrimination doesn't always announce itself with burned crosses or explicit slurs. Sometimes it comes dressed in policy and procedure, hiding behind words like suspicious and verification. It reminds us that power isn't just about position, it's about perception and the courage to challenge both. The Cole Protocol becomes more than policy, it becomes a promise. A promise that no passenger should have to prove they belong in the seat they paid for. That no family should have to validate their success to strangers. That dignity isn't something to be verified at a gate, it's something every human being carries with them from the moment they are born. 3 brothers went to the airport one morning, dressed in their best suits, ready to inspire young people. They ended up inspiring a nation. Not through the speech they planned to give, but through the grace they showed when the world tried to tell them they didn't belong. They belonged. They always belonged. And now, thanks to their courage and their mother's conviction, more people will know they belong too. The flight that was grounded that day eventually took off, hours later, with a different crew and a plane full of passengers who had witnessed history. Some of them would go on to share their own stories of discrimination. Others would become advocates in their own communities. All of them would remember the day they saw injustice challenged not with violence or hatred, but with dignity, determination, and the unshakable power of truth. This is how change happens. Not all at once, not without cost, but one grounded flight, one viral video, one conversation at a time. 3 brothers. 1 mother. A crowd of witnesses. And a world that's slowly, finally, learning to see. The Cole family's story isn't over. Every day, they receive messages from people who've experienced similar discrimination. Every day, they work to turn those individual stories into collective action. Every day, they prove that the arc of the moral universe bends toward justice, but only when we have the courage to grab it and pull. The next time you're at an airport, look around. Notice who gets questioned and who gets waved through. Notice whose tickets are suspicious and whose are assumed to be legitimate. Notice, speak up, record, and remember, we all have the power to ground injustice and help dignity take flight. Because in the end, that's what this story is really about. Not just 3 brothers who were denied boarding, but a society learning to board a better future, one where the color of your skin doesn't determine the legitimacy of your ticket, where success doesn't require explanation, and where dignity is the only verification anyone ever needs.